Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a seriously foundational business concept today. We are looking at how top-tier organizations don't just, acquire customers, but actually turn them into lifelong advocates. We're going to dive deep into the details of a highly focused module that breaks customer optimization down into a really clear, logical framework. We'll be exploring the exact curriculum laid out in our source material. So, let's decode the strategy behind lasting customer relationships.
To give us a quick roadmap, we're going to hit 4 key areas today. First, optimizing the customer journey. Second, the 5 lifecycle stages. Third, customer lifecycle value. And finally, strengthening customer relationships. All right, let's get right to it.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, optimizing the customer journey, the foundation of retention. Before we get into the granular steps, we really have to understand the big picture here, the overarching philosophy that our source module is trying to impart. The ultimate objective isn't just getting customers through the front door. It's about viewing a customer's entire lifespan with a brand as a single optimizable journey. The goal is to retain and strengthen those relationships through what's called dual mastery. So it's not just about making a quick sale, it's about forging a real bond. And doing that effectively requires mastering 2 distinct but totally interconnected elements, which we're going to break down for you right now.
Moving on to the first pillar, Section 2, the 5 life cycle stages. This is all about mapping the chronological journey.
This module maps out a very deliberate step-by-step pathway. We start at step 1, reach. This is just getting on their radar through targeted awareness. But then we have to actively draw them into the ecosystem through step 2, acquisition, really capturing that initial interest. Then we hit step 3, that pivotal moment of conversion, where transaction or a key action actually takes place. Now the work certainly doesn't stop at the purchase, right? Step 4, retention, ensures they stick around and find continued value. And that ultimately leads us to step 5, loyalty, where they become active, repeating advocates for the brand.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the psychology of the journey becomes so much clearer when we group these steps together. We move from the initial contact phase right into the heavy lifting of bringing them in, and finally to the long-term game of keeping them engaged. You literally cannot leapfrog to loyalty without successfully navigating those earlier phases of reach and conversion. It's a strictly sequential progression that systematically builds trust at absolutely every stage. Let's move to and see how this builds directly into Section 3, Customer Lifecycle Value Explained, the financial worth.
So we just mapped out the exact chronological timeline, right? But here's the thing. The timeline alone is really only half the battle. Think about it. If a customer actually reaches stage 5, loyalty, what is the true worth of that journey? How do you know how many resources you should intelligently invest in reaching them all the way back in step 1? Moving to a value-based mindset is the absolutely critical pivot we have to make here.
And that brings us to customer lifecycle value, or CLV. So the crucial point is that tracking the stages just isn't enough on its own. You have to understand the financial worth of that customer over time. Essentially, it's the predicted revenue a customer is going to generate minus the cost to acquire and serve them. You have to know the underlying value of the life cycle to effectively optimize it. These 2 concepts, they're literally 2 sides of the exact same coin.
Which brings us to the climax of the explainer, Section 4, strengthening customer relationships. This is the ultimate synthesis.
This is where the chronological journey and the financial understanding completely combine. And this brilliantly illustrates the dual mastery we talked about. On one side, you have Pillar 1, the life cycle stages. On the other, Pillar 2, the life cycle value. Neither of these works in a vacuum. If you only know the stages, you might end up way overspending to acquire a low-value customer. But if you only know the value, you lack the structured pathway to actually guide them there. You absolutely need both the map and the measurement.
I want to read an exact quote from the source material because it puts this perfectly. It says, "By mastering both elements, the participants can easily retain and strengthening customer relationships. Mastering both the timeline and the CLV is the literal stated key to achieving the entire promise of the module. It's exactly what transforms a really complex operational challenge into a clear, manageable strategy." We can distill all of this down into a beautifully simple equation for you to take away. Mastery equals retention plus strength. If you master the timeline and you master the value, the output is retained customers and far stronger relationships. You really want to focus all your strategic efforts on this dual mastery.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought based on everything we've just covered. Look at your own projects, your business, or the organizations you interact with.
Which of the 5 stages, reach, acquisition, conversion, retention, or loyalty, are you currently failing to master? Are you hyper-focused on tracking the stages but totally ignoring the customer lifecycle value? Challenge yourself to evaluate your own application of these 2 pillars. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the details of this fascinating source module. Keep learning, keep optimizing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.